Here we go. We're speaking to you today about the Strength in the Church offering, which will be taken on June the 13th. The Strength in the Church offering is a unique offering in the United Church of Christ because we keep it and spend it within the United Church of Christ on special projects that do indeed strengthen the church. Those projects can be those of leadership innovation, of developing programs in youth ministry, of doing special mission projects in local areas. And your church, First Congregational UCC in DeKalb, has received money from the Strength in the Church offering through grants given to you by the Illinois Conference. Tom and Bonnie and Rick are going to share with you ways that your offering money has been spent locally on your own behalf and also for the national church. I'm going to begin with Tom, who's going to talk about a grant that you received or a couple of grants in the past years. Tom?
Good morning. About 10 years ago, many of you remember we started a giving garden, and we had a gentleman who was a farm boy, and he had a truck, he had equipment, he had knowledge, and he instigated the start of the giving garden. His name was Skip Mecklenburg. Our thought was to clear land. Literally, we had to saw down trees and clean out scrub bushes. And then we proceeded to put up a fence. Interestingly enough, we had a fence that went up about 5 feet high. We quickly learned, though, that deer can jump 10 feet high. And with one time, we saw 7 different deer in the garden at one time. So we shared our food not only with all different groups and families, but we also shared it with the animals. Now, the project has run for about 10 years. We had Troy Harness, who was getting his Eagle Scout project, and he took over and did the garden for a year, and he got his Eagle Scout and went through the ceremony at our church. There have been a number of people who have worked with the garden. The food that we produced went to Hope Haven, Safe Passage, and many times the ministers would send people out to pick vegetables that were in the garden. It was there and available for anyone who needed it. So it was a wonderful project to be able to work with. Now we have Francisco, who has rototilled and helped put in the garden. And of course, we appreciate Jerry and Lisa Gorschels, who have helped continue on the project. So we're all very much aware of what these projects can do and how they can help others and help ourselves be much, much stronger. Thank you.
So Bonnie, you want to talk about the Layette program, which along with the garden also received a grant from the Illinois Conference?
Yes, I do. I want to read to you the interviews I did with Karen Fenn, Nancy Allen, and Janice Blickham about the Layette program a few years back for the church newsletter, The Spire. It was written for the Three Great Loves series that was being promoted by the church. The Layette program here at UCC DeKalb has been a mission of the Women's Fellowship of the First Congregational Church in DeKalb for the past 30 years. The women involved in this mission give so much to babies and their mothers in our community. They give out of their own pockets, put in their own time, anticipate a mother's needs, and try to fill them. The women in our church make layettes, often the first new thing the mothers working with the DeKalb County Health Department receive. There's a constellation of people at our church in cooperation with First Lutheran Church and First United Methodist Church who support these families. Everyone involved really is extremely eager to give. It's amazing what these women do. Each layette's contents can run $50 or more. A single layette includes one folded pre-folded diaper, 2 shirts or onesies, a burp cloth, 2 washcloths, 2 gowns or sleepers, 2 diaper pins, 1 sweater or cardigan type sweatshirt, 1 small bar of ivory soap, and 2 receiving blankets, one of which can be a knitted blanket. Recently, a children's book has been added to the layettes as well. In addition, for women who have had difficulty with their pregnancy, a homemade quilt is often provided. UCC coordinator Karen Finn, United Methodist Donna Bennett, and the DeKalb County Health Department's Kay Chase find a way to produce and distribute 250 to 275 of these layettes every year. According to UCC congregant Janice Blickan, when the program started, most of the items in the layettes were handmade and were given to women in need. About 20 years ago, the program became affiliated with the WIC program at the DeKalb County Health Department. When the program started, about 50 layettes were made a year. Because of increased need, the health department estimates the need at 50 or more layettes a month. Due to the monies received in 2014 from the UCC Mission Support Grant, our church, in conjunction with First Methodist and First Lutheran churches, not only donate items for the layettes, but they raise money and spread the word about the women's efforts. Blickan has again applied for grant funding through UCC Conference Mission Support, and efforts to generate donations are ongoing.
Thanks, Bonnie. So Tom's going to share with us some information about one of the ways that the offering from last year was used this year to help strengthen the church.
Keep and Tell. The Strengthen the Church offering supports grants which makes a difference in the lives of people across the United Church of Christ. The Keep and Tell congregation in Central Atlantic Conference honors rural life and faith by focusing on agrarian rhythms, ecological concerns, and creation care. Keep and Tell received a grant to stabilize and improve their community garden during the pandemic. Pastor Samuel Sharmwellen explains the impact of the grant. The quarantine made in person, more activities were difficult to be involved with, and they were excited to keep the Keep and Tell program going because they weren't meeting in the church, they were meeting outside. They were able to go without masks, or excuse me, in this case, they were wearing the mask, and later they didn't have to, but then they were also distancing themselves too. The grant literally functions renewal of the garden. Much enriched the soil, mulched beds, 250-gallon trough increased the water capacity, organic pest control improved the overall yield of the garden. But most significantly, people in the neighborhood came out to spend time in the garden. Pastor Samuel saw a renewal in people. When a tornado destroyed the tool shed, one of these new families gave their tool shed to them, and the tool shed was in good shape. We had many people helping that were not members of the church. In fact, there was a problem with weeds and poison ivy, and one of the families who was not a member brought their fire ability to burn over to the garden area. And of course, they were able to get rid of all the brush and the litter that was there. They kept on working diligently, and they were pleased when they could give their food to others and have new people enjoying their church and being active. So even though we had COVID going on, they were able to continue their search to help others. So a very good example of what people can do.
Thanks, Tom. So Rick, I'll have you share one more story with us.
Okay, well, this is for renewal through partnership. And because of the pandemic, we've had a little bit of problems trying to do that. And the strengthening the church offering provided crucial support to congregations and their community partners during the COVID pandemic. Moving forward, grants from the strengthening the church offering will help congregations pivot towards church and renewal and community engagement. The two examples I'm talking about here come from the Plymouth Congregational Church in Lawrence, Kansas, who partnered with the Haskell Foundation, a nonprofit whose sole mission is to support Haskell Indian Nations University to address the needs of Haskell students during the pandemic. And as you know, we live close to a university and we often help them. COVID-19 deeply affected Indigenous people. And one of the examples was a student, one Navajo student received help for an emergency flight and quarantine accommodations because he needed to return to bury 5 family members. Plymouth also helped a woman, one young Lakota woman traveled back from her reservation to off-campus housing in Lawrence, Kansas. This was last September. Her car broke down on the way. She had managed to scrape together the first month's rent and deposit for the off-campus apartment, but she had to spend her rent money on car repairs. So emergency funds helped her make the rent deposit. So she had a place to live when she got back. It said here, meaning back to Lawrence. And this is how this funding helps people who are maybe not members of the congregation, but we are partnering with members of the community.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay.
Thanks to Tom and Bonnie and Rick for the stories. We invite you to contribute to the Strengthen the Church offering. We'll be taking that on Sunday, June the 13th, which coincidentally we hope is the first Sunday that we gather together to worship back in church. Thanks very much.